Hello and welcome to Talking with Famous People. In this episode of Talking with Famous People, I, host Eric, in concert with accumulated, introverted, famous people, Callum, Contract Under Guadalupe First Seals, Hami, INFP Listener, Mega Bro, and Zach Attack as Rooster 6 just went offline. And today we're talking about the decision-making process of each of the 16 types. So far, I've done ISFJ, INFJ, ENFP, and what else did I do? Is that it? Oh, ENFJ, right. ENFJ, ENFP. I'm going to write these down. That's smart. I'm going to write these down so I don't forget it. Okay, so I don't forget what I've done. So I've done so far ISFJ, ISFP. Did I do the ISFP? Yeah. ENFP and ENFJ. And now, in this video, I'm doing ESFJ and ESTP. Okay, so let's start with the ESFJ, a type I understand very well. My ex-wife was an ESFJ. I lived with her for, I don't know, 8 years or something like that, 10 years. So, I understand the ESFJ decision-making process is pretty straightforward. First of all, they are comfortable with taking action and pulling the trigger in the same way that the NE Dom is comfortable with introverted intuition. They have to learn to be comfortable with it. At first, they don't trust it because they can't consciously control it. And if there's one thing the ESFJ personality type, ESFJ starts with FE, then SI. So I got that. The first thing I said there was wrong about the corollary between NE and NI. The corollary is actually between TI and TE. So again, the relationship is one of the ESFJ is good at pulling the trigger, but they don't value it per se for its own sake. And in fact, they're not really aware when they are pulling the trigger of why or how they're doing that, nor do they credit that action with the outcomes that are attained. They credit some other framing. So the ESFJ leads with FE like the ENFJ. The difference is the ESFJ is much more adept at managing others' emotions in practical ways because they're much less concerned with managing others' emotions in impractical ways. The ESFJ seeks to attain benefits for others or improve others in their realization of their self through application of learned principles about how people should act, what works, what makes people like you, what makes people dislike you, what successfully influences people, what unsuccessfully influences people. And the ESFJ is among the more effective types I have ever met. With SI in the second slot, they're extremely organized. They keep track of all the schedules. They got everything written down. With their NE, they got NE in the third slot. So they are open to possibilities. They're aspirational in that area. They'd like to see more possibilities, but they're kind of clumsy about it. They don't get it. And if you have a smart ESFJ and they're in a relationship with an ENTP, the ESFJ is going to listen to the ENTP in regards to those things and follows advice about how things ought to be structured to maximize to make possible outcomes that are desirable more likely. But they're concerned about that because what comes before NE is SI. They look first to the past. They want to see examples where this thing that you're claiming, that you say, oh, well, this action is going to produce this outcome through this mechanism, they're going to vet that first through FE. No, it won't. It's going to make some people unhappy. Then they're going to vet it through SI. When people have tried that in the past, it's failed in the following ways. And when I've tried this alternative instead, it's worked. This is how you manage people, Eric, not like what you're trying to do. And then third, they're going to use their possibilities function, and they're going to say, well, let's see, maybe if Eric could be right. But the problem is, I'm possibilities dominant. If I'm in that relationship with an ESFJ, her understanding of the utility of her using NE to evaluate things about which we are in dispute is zero, because on that, I'm going to be right. And then in the last one that she has is TI. I'm going to be right about TI stuff, and I'm going to be right about NE stuff, and she's going to be right about SI stuff, and she's going to be right about FE stuff. When those two types work in concert, then they form a potentially very powerful couple. But neither of them wants to be the supporting character. So that's where that breaks down. But the point is, ESFJ decision making is practical, it's effective, it happens when they need it to happen, and it by and large achieves things they need to achieve, provided they aren't trying to make decisions about systems. And that's where my ex-wife sort of fell apart, was when she had a business that was going and it was doing reasonably well, and I was able to see, it was obvious to me, oh, well, this is what you do now. You're well positioned here. You go here, here, here. But she was too scared to lose hold and control over certain elements of things, and just didn't trust me. And that's not her fault. That's my fault mostly, because I was drunk for a long time. But she ended up making the wrong decision, pulling the wrong trigger, because she put too much faith in her FE and then in her SI, and not enough faith in the alternative that was right there, supposedly hoping to complement her cognitive stack, which was possibilities and the actual thinking it out. And you can outsmart FE. You can't. It doesn't work the other way around exactly. I mean, your thinking stuff can be shut down by feeling concerns that are absolutely legitimate and feeling should win and vetoes and stuff. But once thinking's developed a certain amount, you don't make those mistakes anymore. So then at that point, the only thing that happens is FE presents a short-sighted and ultimately false recommendation that has to be rejected. So that's the ESFJ. Of course, if they're settled into a really happy family situation where they want to be and everything's cool, then they're making decisions on those small-scale levels at which they're expert at making decisions and rarely make mistakes and thrive. It's just when they're faced with big life changes and have to think on bigger scales that they come into problems. So that's my take on the ESFJ, highly effective type. If you are an INTP, you should get yourself one. You're looking for one. They're your dual. And I believe wholly in that model that says we need our dual to balance us out. ESFJ wasn't quite my dual. I'm looking for an ISFJ eventually. When the right ISFJ woman comes around, we probably won't even manage to hook up, because according to Socionics, she'll think I'm too good for her and I won't notice her. That's what Socionics says. But thanks for warning me, Socionics, because I'm gonna spike that shit. All right, so let's go on to the next type that we're going to talk about the decision-making process. I'm sorry, let me pause. Any comments on ESFJ from anybody? If you just arrived, Leah. If you just arrived, Leah, then we're talking about decision-making of different types. Any comments about ESFJ? Okay, let's go on to ESTP. So, the ESTP... oh, wait, there is... fucking chat doesn't go down. I think it would be cool, too, if comparisons between ENTP and ENFP have certain exclusivity within them, besides having statements such as ENFP does X better than ENTPs. Oh, well, ENTPs and ENFPs both... okay. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't notice the chat doesn't scroll down automatically, and I just sort of didn't notice that there was additional stuff here. I think it's a good point where he says, this is Rusin is left now, says, I think it would be cool if comparisons between ENTP and ENFP have certain exclusivity within them, besides having statements such as ENTP does X better, ENTP S, or prefer X more than ENFPs. I see. I think what he's saying is they're both locked within the same environment. Draw points about those similarities and how they manifest the distinctions through that lens, how that lens informs both of them and is unique to those two any Dom types, which is good advice and something I'll take into consideration moving forward. As far as ESTP, so what we're talking about next, that's my drummer Nick, and it's also EJR&D. It's who's another ESTP I know? Well, I mean Donnie Pepper, I think is an ESTP as well. He's a drummer too. So the thing about ESTPs is their decision-making process is probably as good as any types, unless they fall victim to the extroverted perceiver's bugaboo addiction. I think all extroverted perceivers are prone, if that's in the dominant function, are prone to addiction because they are leap first people. They act, they perceive. The perceiving idea is really an action thing if it's extroverted, and it's a resolution thing if it's introverted. So SEs, DOMs, and any DOMs, we both act with a certain amount of impulsivity. However, the ESTP, if they understand what they want in terms of a plan, if they have a clear vision of where they're going, can be excellent at executing that plan in a way that the ENTP is never going to succeed in executing any plan. The ENTP relies upon his ability to constantly shift to new circumstances. The SE Dom, in contrast, relies on his ability to successfully execute what's right in front of them. So they like a clear path where what's right in front of them is the thing they get to do. They don't like necessarily reinventing the path. They don't like blowing shit up for the sake of it. They're thought of as no discipline, impulse whores, but they're nothing like that at all. Instead, what they are is highly effective executors of singular plans and visions that unfortunately are denied a lot of opportunity to find plans and visions that coordinate well with their unique cognitive function skill set. So there's not a lot of plans and visions that coordinate super well with ESTP. Working on cars, playing drums, becoming a adventure guide or something like that. Those plans coordinate well. If you're going to have an adventure guide and you're an ENTP, you really want to have an ESTP be your adventure guide, because you're not going to notice as you're about to walk into the grizzly bear's mouth. But the ESTP will, and they'll act before you do. That kind of action, that kind of immediate responsiveness in the moment as a dominant function makes decision making not something they do. They don't make decisions so much as they act their decisions. And their decisions, which are determined by TI, are specific and concrete. They're not a million different possibilities because it's SE, not any. So they're pretty direct, pretty straightforward, and pretty get the shit done kind of handle. They're not good with a lot of complicated parsing stuff. Because even though they have TI and they're very capable of engaging in discourse, thought, whatever that is about logical consistency, they simply do not see the point of splitting hairs at all. And they see that kind of abstraction stuff is pointless because that's not the realm in which their action has any impact. It doesn't matter if Nick punches me or not. My metaphysical arguments remain unchanged. And to the extent that anybody wants to impact those metaphysical arguments, is they either can unavoidably do it by simply engaging with me about it and talking, or they can attempt to direct the nature of their the change they implement upon my metaphysics, in which case they'll probably find it nearly impossible. Whereas it's easy to punch somebody. So their decisions are certain, they're clear, and they have definitive impact in a way the ENTP dreams of, and yet they're limited in their scope to concrete things primarily. And as a consequence, if they don't get derailed by addiction, ENTPs should evolve into a decisive, achieving type that achieves in concrete ways. Like, I bought 2 boats and a jet ski, and I got 6 mountain bikes and an RV and 3 kids, and like that kind of stuff. That should be an ESTP realized in his element, empowered by wealth and competency to make those kind of decisions. And that wraps up the ESTP. I will leave a space now for any of the accumulated people. The list is getting pretty long here. If anybody has anything they'd like to chime in, either in the chat or vocally through their microphone, please feel free to do so now. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching Talk with Faith, people. Be back in a second with the next 2 types, which are going to be determined after I stop this video.